Brianna Wu joins us. She's a former Just Democrat, ran for office, and is now the executive director of Rebellion Pact. So Brianna, great to have you back on the Young Turks.
Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to be here, Cenk.
All right, so for those who are uninitiated, tell us what Rebellion Pact is.
Rebellion Pact is our way to fight back. Like you and I both know that Democrats and progressives especially are held to double standards with what we can say and what we can't say. We saw this in the Kennedy-Markey race. Markey would put out tough messaging saying, you know what, Joe Kennedy is just running on his name. He doesn't have policy. And the Boston Globe and the Boston media blasted him over that. We put together tough ads saying the exact same thing, caught on like wildfire on Facebook, put it on TV, people loved it, and we helped him win. So our mission objective is to put out the tough messages that progressive Democrats can't because they're held to double standards.
So let's take a look at the future. Now, in 2020, Bernie Sanders had a heartbreaking loss. And then others, including you and I, by the way, briefly ran for office and didn't make it. But then we had amazing victories. Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, Marie Newman. Then you've got Mondare in New York, and you've got many others throughout the country that weren't at the congressional level. And then you've got Ed Markey, the race you were talking about, fending off an up and coming corporate Democrat backed by Nancy Pelosi. So when you look at that whole picture, are you, like, let's be as honest as we can here, are you encouraged or discouraged for 2022 and beyond?
I think it's going to depend on how discouraged progressives feel. If we stay true to ourselves and we dig deep and we keep fighting, hell yeah, we're gonna win, we're gonna be fine. It's just two heartbreaking losses in a row. Yeah, I'm on record saying I will vote for Joe Biden, but I'm never gonna feel enthusiastic about that. But we have to get out there and do it. Because it's about supporting Cori Bush, it's about supporting AOC, it's about supporting all these great progressive Democrats that we've got. So we have to have their back with resources, with time, with energy, and with messaging discipline. So I would say our future is largely up to us.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And we've got to, as Nina Turner was just saying, we've got to plan and organize now to be able to win, not just in these elections, but also in 2022 and 2024. Actually, I wanted to play Bernie's speech at the DNC this year, or a portion of it, and have you react to it, because I think it relates to something you just said. So let's roll that.
This election is the most important in the modern history of this country. In response to the unprecedented crises we face, we need an unprecedented response, a movement like never before of people who are prepared to stand up and fight for democracy and decency and against greed, oligarchy, and bigotry. Our campaign ended several months ago, but our movement continues and is getting stronger every day. Many of the ideas we fought for that just a few years ago were considered radical are now mainstream. But let us be clear, if Donald Trump is reelected, all the progress we have made will be in jeopardy. Together, we must build a nation that is more equitable, more compassionate, and more inclusive. I know that Joe Biden will begin that fight on day one.
So Brianna, Rebellion Pact's running ads against Trump as well. Yes. So do you agree with Bernie? Because the problem is that it's the Democratic Party and the media are a little bit of the story of the boy who cried wolf, right? This is the most important election of your lifetime. This is the most important election of every election, every presidential election. But do you agree with Bernie that this, in fact, is the most important election of our lifetime?
I absolutely do. I don't know if our democracy can withstand 4 more years of Trump. He has frayed the guardrails. He's attacked the judiciary. We see the attorney general, constantly attacking the rule of law. I genuinely worry that if we don't defeat Donald Trump this time, that the United States is going to descend into a hybrid autocracy, where we're not going to have free and fair elections, and it truly terrifies me. And I just want to touch on something that Bernie said there. We are all tired. I have never been as exhausted as I am today after 4 years of Trump. But I grew up in Mississippi. And I think about the Black people I grew up with that stood through the civil rights movement in Mississippi, and how tired they must have been back in the 90s, back in the 2000s. Today, we are all tired to our bones, but we have to keep fighting, because if we don't, we're essentially forfeiting the country.
Look, I'm a broken record on 2 things, but only because they're the 2 things that I think affect things the most. And so one is money in politics and getting money out. If we don't, I'm gonna have to start 2 more PACs. Like, for God's sake, let's focus our energies so that we can fix the core of the problem. But the second thing is the corporate media. Because almost all of our candidates run into the same problem, which is getting halfway decent press coverage, getting any press coverage at all, and then getting press coverage that isn't overtly hostile. So in terms of, I'll ask about 2 things. One, against Trump, what can Rebellion Pact do? And 2, how do we begin to change the focus of the media, if that's possible, to give progressives a fair shake?
So the first question, what can Rebellion Pact do? We are looking right now at the really tough swing state elections, and these were won by almost nothing in 2016. Michigan in particular, it was a little over 10,000 votes. So if you were telling a PAC, hey, you need to go out there and let's say triple that, make sure you get 30,000 progressives to get out there and vote, that's an achievable mission objective. And really think about this. You've got the centrist Democrats, they're sure gonna go after centrist corporate Democrats. And we know from the convention, they're gonna be very good at targeting towards Republicans. But over here with the progressives, is anyone really talking to progressives and saying, you know what, if you show up and vote and get Cori Bush in there along with AOC and the squad, think about what we can really get past. No one is making that case. So I see my objective every single day from now until the election is to go out there to those swing states, make those cases using modern techniques to progressive Democrats, make sure that we vote and make our voice heard.
Right. Now, about the media, is it through the ads? Is it through data? How do we get change the dynamic and the paradigm of the media seemingly being against progressive candidates so fervently as they were with Bernie in 2016 and 2020?
That really is the core question, Cenk. If you look at the Boston Globe coverage of how they covered me during Gamergate, when it was Brianna Wu the victim, Brianna Wu getting death threats or bricks through her window, look at how they covered me. They were delighted to write editorials and send TV cameras out and to cover me when I was a woman in danger. But when I was a woman asking for power and asking for my ideas to be heard, just shut down automatically. The truth is, we can't count on traditional media to get our messages out there and cover us fairly. People say MSNBC is like this far leftist thing. It's not, it's very centrist Democrat. So I think what's really important is you've got to support progressive media that you believe in, like Young Turks and Nation, these other progressive institutions. And I think we really have to put together our own media ecosystem to get these messages out there. Markey won in Massachusetts because we were all hyper organized in getting our friends out there, aware of the election, and making sure they showed up to the polls. That is a playbook that bypasses the media. As far as I can tell, that's the only way we're going to get Medicare for all passed.
All right, and let me ask you a funny question. Because obviously we embarked on this journey together on Rebellion, you and I did. But for the audience at home, why did you decide to do this in particular?
It was a really hard decision. I had already started fielding offers from the game industry to go back to software engineering. But what I realized is a lot of people, after they run for office and they don't win, they're so hurt from the experience because it's really emotionally painful that they don't stick around. And I know you saw this too running for office, Cenk, that when you're looking at the professional class of politicos, they're sometimes lacking on the progressive policies and the progressive approach to things. So I saw my ability to use my experience in the tech industry with really ferocious messaging to really go out there and make a bold pact that wasn't afraid to throw some metaphorical punches for the causes I believed in. So the short answer is I saw that there was a leadership vacuum, and I really thought that we could win the 2020 election.
Yeah, well, I think we definitely can win the 2020 election. I agree with you that something like Rebellion Pact laser focus on some key states and districts that can win could make a huge difference. Could make all the difference. Yeah. So everybody's got to help in their own way. At this point, Rebellion Pact isn't strong enough or isn't large enough. I'm keeping it real to be able to affect the entire national race. Yep. But if we could do our part in Michigan and a couple of other places, I think that it could make a big difference. And we get to hit harder than traditional Democratic PACs. So then that leads me to this question. So you talked about punching harder, and Bernie, for all of his, being the Diogenes of the progressive movement and in politics, the one honest man, and the guy who held the lantern for us to see the way, was not that hard a puncher. So the next person who runs, who has a real shot at the presidential level, do they need to be more aggressive and even honestly hostile to what we can tell you ahead of time is going to be the horrible media coverage that they get?
Yeah, maybe they do. I think it depends on the candidate. Something I really do appreciate about Rebellion Pact is we can say that we can run the nastiest, most accurate ads you can ever imagine and get that message out there in a real way. So you can call me every name in the book. I don't care. We're going to keep saying it. I do think that we need to stand truer to our values. But I think with Bernie, Cenk, something that I had my own experience with Bernie when I was growing up in Mississippi. And the media looks down on these 20-somethings today that heard Bernie in 2016 and got active in politics. I know exactly what that's like, because I remember being 20-something in Mississippi and trying to find my political footing and hearing Bernie talking real for the very first time. So I just think that we have to be honest with ourselves and our values and throw a punch, but people are attracted to the truth, and that's what we need to stick to.
Well, it's interesting because even though we started Rebellion Pact together, I hadn't even considered the fact that maybe the next candidate we have in 2024 for the progressive movement for the presidential level doesn't have to throw as many punches if we do it for him. So rebellionpact.com. Maybe that'll be our tagline. We throw punches.
We're the sin eaters.
So, but Brianna, before I let you go, I don't want to glide past it because there's actually a really powerful point you just made there a couple of questions ago. That when the media saw you, we talked about got to be willing to withstand some critique, to say the least, right? And God, you've been attacked almost as hard as anyone's ever been attacked during Gamergate, and I know a thing or two about getting attacked. So we're in the counterpunch business, but that line you had about how when you were in Gamergate, the media did cover you fairly and in a sense rose to your defense. But when you ran for office and asked for power, then they turned on you. That is really interesting. And look, I don't know if you could psychoanalyze them, but because I don't think that they're doing it consciously. I don't think the reporter who thought, I like Brianna, and my God, what they're doing to her at Gamergate is outrageous. She's running for office, I really can't stand her. I don't think that's a conscious thought, right?
Right.
So what is it about that dynamic that made them flip and not give you the time of day when you ran for office, you think?
I think it's someone fitting into a storyline, right? It's almost like the media makes up a story about you. And it's like, it's really hard to break out of that. You see this a lot with the media covering racial issues as well. They're very happy to cover the horrors that happen to people of color, but as soon as that person of color is running for office, you see all these double standards and questions come up in a really uncomfortable way. So I don't think it's malicious, but I also think it speaks to the homogenous nature of newsrooms, and you and I both seen that in our careers, and there just aren't people there with our beliefs, and I think that needs to change.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.